Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
The winner of the 2021 Heisman Memorial Trophy, Bryce Young.
Roll Tide. Let's do this, Rod. Good evening and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, brought to you each and every week by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. And no prediction this week. We won't play for a couple weeks. But more history was made by Alabama football under Nick Saban this past Saturday night. Now, Alabama, remember, had never had a Heisman Trophy winner, period, until 2009 with running back Mark Ingram. Running back Derrick Henry followed. In 2015, Derrick Henry followed. And then last season, it was Devontae Smith winning the Heisman Trophy. And then this past Saturday night in New York City, sophomore Bryce Young was named the winner at the 86th Heisman Trophy presentation. Young became the first Alabama quarterback to be named the winner of the Heisman Trophy. And that's noteworthy, obviously. Alabama's 12-1, won the SEC championship, and is the top seed in the college football playoff. Young has completed 314 of 462 passes for 4,322 yards, 43 touchdowns, and he has just been dynamic, to say the least, this season. He is a great player and always composed. He thanked his head coach and offensive coordinator at the ceremony and spoke about the fuel that he uses as a driving force.
I've always been someone who's been, labeled as not the prototype. Being an African-American quarterback and, being, quote-unquote undersized and not being that prototype, I've always been ruled out and counted out. And people a lot of times have told me that, I wasn't going to be able to make it. And for me, it's always been about, not really proving them wrong, but proving to myself what I can accomplish.
All right, Rodney, let's talk about this with Bryce Young. And first, a photo of Bryce Young and his parents all doing the Heisman pose. That is absolutely terrific, seeing them all together. And let's go ahead and talk about this accomplishment. This is unbelievable. Alabama never having a Heisman Trophy winner as a quarterback. Didn't have one, period, as we mentioned, until 2009 with Ingram, then Henry, Devontae Smith, and now Bryce Young.
Well, obviously very historical, Gary, and you look at it, too, and you think, okay, in 2018, Tua probably should have won it, certainly could have won it. 2020, Mac Jones could have won it, although we have no argument that Devontae was very, very deserving of that. So, bottom line, the last three Alabama quarterbacks were in position to win the Heisman Trophy. That's pretty phenomenal because you remember we used to discuss many times, since Namath and Stabler, Alabama hasn't had maybe that caliber of quarterback. Obviously, Richard Todd was a first-round draft choice. He was a great player, was never really a Heisman candidate either. I mean, they've had several great ones through the years. Walter Lewis, certainly A.J. McCarron was certainly a guy that had the credentials. But to finally have a quarterback to win the Heisman, Gary, I think this is something that Alabama fans have been waiting a long time to see.
Absolutely, and the fact that it's his first year as a starter, he's a sophomore. Rodney, Archie Griffin is, the running back at Ohio State in 1974, 1975, the only two-time winner of the Heisman Trophy. Bryce will have to earn it, but he'll go into next season as the favorite to win it again.
Well, a lot of people thought when Tim Tebow won it, what was it, 2006 or 7? 7 when he won it, and then thought he might go back-to-back, or certainly have an opportunity to do that. Didn't happen, but Bryce will go in there next season with an opportunity to do that, and so it'll be really interesting. Yeah,
it will be. And in the short term, now that he's the Heisman winner, which is absolutely awesome and all Alabama fans are celebrating, but it's unfinished business. And as the Heisman winner, how about this little stat? I gave you Ingram in 2009, Henry in 2015, Devontae Smith in 2020. You know what else they have in common? Alabama won the national championship every year that they've had a Heisman winner.
Yeah, and they're in position to do it again.
Yeah, so that's what Bryce Young is focused on now. He said as much. He said, listen, this is great. This is awesome, but we want to finish the season, and that is what the goal will be. All right, let's move on to some basketball. 9th-ranked Alabama and number 14 Houston had the feeling of an NCAA tournament game, and not just an NCAA tournament game. How about an Elite Eight or maybe even a Final Four? This was high-level basketball on Saturday night between the Tide and the Cougs at Coleman Coliseum. Back and forth. No team ever had a double-digit lead in the game. Alabama was up 4 at the break. Quinterly had a big basket. Then he misses there, but J.D. Davison throws it down. And here at the end, Houston down by 1. The 3 goes up. It's tipped around. Now, J.D. Davison swats it out of there. And, boy, the Houston coaches and players, they wanted a goaltending call, and they went berserk after the game. But the call stood. There was no goaltending call, and later pictures showed that the ball was not in the cylinder. But, Rodney, this is a huge win when you consider they win this game 7 days after they'd beaten Gonzaga up in Seattle. So you beat 2 of last year's Final Four back-to-back. Alabama basketball had a great year last year, but I've talked about this before in the program. Nate Oates isn't interested in just having one really good year. He wants to build a top 10 program, and it looks like he's doing it.
How amazing is that? Beat 2 of the Final Four teams. That's really amazing, Gary. I think that where this program has come in Nate Oates so quickly, he's recruited extremely well. They lost a lot from last year. People said, would they be able to kind of rebound and have the kind of year that you would hope? And it's just amazing to me where he's got this program. Indeed,
it is. Alabama number 6 this week in the AP poll, number 8 in the coaches poll. And this is something interesting at the end of the game, Rodney, that's kind of got people stirred up. This became a very popular meme. And, hey, listen, Nate Oates is a guy who likes Saban. I mean, when you win big, people don't like it. And that handshake there, because Kelvin Sampson was after the official and Coach Oates just left his hand out there, that stirred some people up. But you know what that tells me? Again, if you're losing, nobody gets stirred up.
When
you're winning,
you're right, Gary. When you have them stirred up like he's got some of these fans of other schools, you look at Twitter and the social media, and they're really after Nate Oates, and you're doing something right.
Indeed. And Alabama tonight with a tough game on the road at Memphis. 8 p.m. tip on ESPN. Well, I know it is a team in Memphis that's lost 4 games in a row, but remember they were number 12 in the preseason, and they are very, very talented. Let's get to more on that. It's time for Coach Talk. As I said, the Tide will be taking on the Memphis Tigers tonight in Memphis. It's a whiteout game at the FedEx Forum. And that's also the home of the NBA's Memphis Grizzlies. Now, the opponent, as I said, the Tigers have lost 4 in a row. They're 5-4 on the season. But Alabama head coach Nate Oates said after the game at against Houston, that the Tigers could have the most talented roster 1 through 11 in the entire nation.
I think guys realize how hard they have to play to win these type of games. And sure, we got another one. I mean, Memphis has, they're struggling now, but they've got as much talent as anybody on our schedule. They got 2 kids that projected lottery picks, depending on what you look at. So we'll make sure our guys' legs are under them by Tuesday. But, we got an unbelievable schedule sitting there in front of us, and we've answered the bell for the most part with the Gonzaga win and now the Houston win.
They're going to try to answer it again tonight. On Monday, Alabama women's basketball made quick work of Sam Houston. This one was a close game after the first quarter, with Alabama only up 15-14, but the Tide went on to win it convincingly, 84-50. It was the 5th grade fast break team. All the area 5th graders and their teachers were there. It made for an electric atmosphere, a lot of fun for the players. And Alabama now with just 2 losses, the Crimson Tide is looking good, not only on the men's side of things, but with the women as well. And still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama had some notable recruits visit this past weekend, and National Signing Day is tomorrow, which means decisions will be made. Plus, our recruiting expert Rodney will give his forecast when we come back. You'll want to stay tuned for that. And a little bit later on, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information there on your screen. As always, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us at the address there, TITV@WVUA23.com, or you can tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Well, tonight for Alabama football fans is like Christmas Eve. And they're hoping that old St. Nick, meaning Nick Saban, will stuff their stockings with a bunch of brand new Alabama football players, as tomorrow is the early signing period. I'm not sure this is working out the way they envisioned when they moved up to December. More on that in a moment, Rodney. But first, Alabama football certainly stayed busy in the final weekend that you could bring in recruits before the Dead period started on Monday. Two notable visitors, both from IMG Academy, defensive back Dalen Everett and outside linebacker Jihad Campbell. Both players had been committed to Clemson before decommitting after Brent Venables left to become the head coach at Oklahoma. Another recruit that visited was wide receiver Shaz Preston from St. James High School in Louisiana. All right, Rodney, let's run these down. Some of the guys that Alabama's still interested in. 21 players already committed, but they've got a number of offers still out there. We'll start with Dalen Everett because he's off the board. He committed to Georgia this afternoon.
Yeah, he did, and I think Alabama jumping in on him a little late because, like you mentioned, he had been committed to Clemson, Gary. So it's not really a surprise that he picked Georgia. They had a long-time relationship.
All right, let's run down some other guys that have Alabama offers that could sign with the Crimson Tide or someone else tomorrow. Let's start with Shaz Preston, the wide receiver out of St. James High School down in Louisiana. This is a guy that Alabama seems to be in pretty good shape with.
Yeah, you like John Mechie?
Yeah, a lot.
He's a lot like John Mechie. That's who I would compare Shaz Preston to. This guy just produces. Really physical player, too. So I like Shaz Preston. I like Alabama's chances here. I think Shaz Preston picks Alabama over LSU.
All right, in-state, and this is probably the top uncommitted in-state prospect, Curtis Perry, the disruptive defensive lineman from Pike Road in Montgomery in the Class 5A state championship game against Pleasant Grove. He was a one-man wrecking crew. Now, the knock on him has been his height. He's probably about 6'1", but you know what? Aaron Donald's about 6'1", When you can play, you can play, and this kid can really get after it.
Gary, when you talk about first step, he's got it. I mean, he can beat you off the line of scrimmage so quickly. Curtis Perry, one prominent defensive line coach, not in the SEC, outside the SEC, said, look, if this guy was 6'3", 280 pounds, he might be the #1 player in America. He had 22 sacks this year. It's Alabama and Auburn right now. Auburn's made a real strong
push. Too close to call, maybe?
Well, I would give Alabama an edge. But at the same time, it's one of those situations, and you've seen it before, Gary. It could probably go either way, but I really think Alabama.
All right, we will see. Earl Little Jr., the DB out of Plantation American Heritage down in South Florida. This is a guy that for the longest time we felt like he would wind up at Alabama, but Mario Cristobal comes in to Miami and puts a full court press on him. What's his status headed into signing day?
I feel good about Earl Little Jr. I really do. I think he's been a long time lean to Alabama. Like you said, Mario Cristobal made him an immediate top priority. Plays for Patrick Surtain's father down there at American Heritage. But right now, I would still pick Alabama.
All right, Damani Jackson is another guy that was looking good for Alabama. Maybe Cristobal can't turn Little, but it sure looks like Lincoln Riley may be able to turn Damani Jackson back to USC. Yeah,
it does. You know, he originally committed to USC. Looked like even as a week and a half ago that Damani probably would end up here in Tuscaloosa. And I'm not saying Alabama has given up, certainly, in this, but it does look to be, as they say, trending towards USC. Now, he's not going to announce until Friday.
All right, let's run down some other guys. Those are some video clips that we have, but some other guys I want to mention. Kendrick Law, another Louisiana athlete out of Captain Shreve there in Shreveport. What's the latest?
Love Kendrick Law, Gary. I think he's one of the most dynamic players in the country. When you talk about the ability with the ball in his hands, could play receiver, could play running back, could play in the secondary, great kick returner. I think he's a five-star type player. I'm going a little bit Alabama here over LSU, although LSU really made a strong push on his visit this past weekend. But if Alabama can pull him off and pull off Aaron Anderson and Shaz Preston, they got the top 3 receiver-type prospects out of that state.
That would be incredible. All right, we're getting up against the clock, Rodney, so just real quickly, thoughts on where they may wind up. Ernest Green, the offensive lineman from John Bosco out in California.
Seems to be going back and forth between Alabama and Georgia.
Okay. Shamar James, the Faith Academy linebacker, standout.
Alabama, Georgia, Florida, probably headed out of state.
Marvin Jones Jr., the legacy, the Florida State legacy, he's out of American Heritage as well.
Some people have him the #1 player in the country. Some people said Georgia after this past weekend on his visit, Gary. Alabama, don't rule out Alabama here. Florida State's in it as well.
Jihad Campbell, outside linebacker from IMG.
Watch for Alabama here. He's a 5-star player. He was here this past weekend, one of the best pass rushers in the country.
And a name that was heavily on the Alabama board. Then we felt like maybe he was off the board in terms of his interest, but Denver Harris, you say don't count him out yet.
You know what? I talked to a really strong source in Texas today, said Alabama's definitely in the mix with Denver Harris. It might be Texas and Texas A&M right now, but Alabama's still definitely in it.
Going to be fun tomorrow. Well, still to come on Tider Insider TV, one of Alabama's most experienced defensive backs is expected to miss the college football playoff. Stick around for the details. And up next, your phone calls, emails, and tweets you want to get through. If you've got some recruiting questions, Rodney will take them for you. And I'm still going to tell you before the end of the show, I'm not sure this December signing period is working out the way everyone envisioned, but that's coming up later. Stay with us. Phone calls when we come back right here on TITV. Well, Alabama will reportedly compete in the college football playoff without one of its top defensive backs. According to Matt Zenitz from On3 Sports, quarterback Josh Jobe underwent surgery on his injured foot and is expected to miss the postseason. That's a blow. Jobe has played in 12 games, making 11 starts at the cornerback position this season. He was playing his best football of the season. And Tide's got a lot of depth back there. They'll need guys to step up. Kool-Aid McKinstry's gotten a lot of experience. And hopefully, Rodney, Jalen Armour-Davis will be back to 100%. All right, welcome back into the program with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's jump out on the phone lines. Our good pal John over in Bessemer's first up tonight. What's up, John?
Gary, what's going on, man?
You know it, pal.
Hey, man, what reason I called, man, I was trying to find out how many players can we sign tomorrow, and I was wondering, are we got a chance of beating Georgia one more time?
All right, John, we'll break them down for you. First, as far as tomorrow, Rodney, I wouldn't be surprised if they signed as many as 26 or 7 tomorrow, and then still might add a few in February. I think with the way the numbers are working out now because of COVID, they'll be possibly able to sign about 30, don't you think?
First of all, there may be 2 or 3 that are committed right now that don't sign. We'll see how that works out. So that 21 would come down a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they signed anywhere from 5 to 7 tomorrow, let's say. But I do think the transfer portal could be an option, will be an option, because you're going to have some players that are going to transfer out.
And you mean 25 to 27 tomorrow?
Well, possibly. I said up to 7, so that'd be around 25.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about with the players that are committed, adding about 7. That'd be 19 wind up on the committed list, 2 decommit, and they add about 6 or 7. You're talking about the 25 range
around
total.
25,
okay. Just want to make sure we're clear on that. All right, Rod, let's get to an email. And this is from David in Tuscaloosa. Any chance players who have missed most of the season with injuries could return for the playoffs? It's a great question, David. It's really impossible for us to answer at this point. I don't know, quite frankly, Rod, what the injury situation is. I've heard Chris Allen might try to come back. What are you hearing, if anything?
Well, as far as the injured guys coming back, that's a good question. I mean, there's been a lot of speculation about Chris Allen. Until the practices start,
it's hard to really
and
have
we
any
know
idea.
that they're on the field practicing, it's all it is speculation. Now, there is speculation that Jalen Armour-Davis won't be back.
I know. That's why I mentioned that earlier.
And if that happens,
Gosh,
then all of a sudden you've got Kool-Aid, who's done an outstanding job at one corner, but I think a guy that's got a ton of talent is Kari Jackson. I think he's a star potential. Again, he doesn't have a lot of experience, but I'm talking about as he develops. Yeah. So he may get an opportunity. But think about this, Gary. Marcus Banks would have had a great opportunity. Yeah. He jumped in the portal in the middle of the season, and I hate it for Marcus because I was a big fan of his. But what an opportunity he would have had.
Yeah, coming up, more phone calls and emails right here on TITV. Women's basketball news. Loyal McQueen announced Tuesday on social media that she'll continue her college career at Alabama. Earlier this season, she left Georgia Tech and went into the portal. She had offers from the likes of LSU, Miami, Charlotte, Kansas, Kansas State, and Clemson in addition to the Crimson Tide. Last season as a freshman, she averaged 8.8 points per game and was part of the Yellow Jackets' run to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. Nice pickup for the Tide. All right, welcome back into Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's head back out on the phone lines, and Ed is with us up at Smith Lake. Hey, Ed, how are you?
I'm good. I was just going, you just answered a question about Chris Allen, but Kamar Wheaton's status, I mean, he's been out the whole season. You think he'll be able to come back?
Ed, listen, I'm not really sure on that. I would think probably Kamar Wheaton will not play in the playoffs, participate. Now, he may practice. But at this point, I'd probably be a little surprised.
Yeah, it'd be a lot to ask of a true freshman who hasn't played all year. Then to go
especially a running back, because, look, it's not just about running the ball, as you know. And when you don't have experience picking up blitzes on this level and doing the things you need to do, it'd be tough. Yeah,
Brian Robinson Jr. showed a lot of guts coming back and playing in that SEC championship game. Hopefully this break will allow him to get healthy, and you'll have him and Trey Sanders ready to go.
That's a real key.
Yeah, absolutely it is. All right. Let's get to an email, and this is from Terry Manville. I'm very happy to eat my words when I said Bama football was not champions this year. Roll Tide. Yeah, Terry, a lot of people did. Like I said, I picked Georgia to win that game. Alabama is a champion, already the SEC champion, and that's important. That's big. Now, you want to win it all, but again, Rodney, you've heard me say this many times. Winning the SEC championship is a big deal. Let's not diminish what Alabama has already accomplished. Yeah, you want 2 more. But this is a championship team, and Georgia's in the playoff, but they're sitting over there with nothing right now.
Well, yeah, this is a really tough loss for Georgia because, Gary, not only were they thinking they're going to win the national championship, which they still have a chance to do. But they're looking to overtake Alabama, and winning the SEC, beating Alabama in the SEC championship game would have been something that they could really use in recruiting, and they're recruiting well. But at the same time, everyone's looking to knock Alabama off. Texas A&M, all of these teams. So the SEC, winning the SEC championship is huge.
And that made me think of the second part of John from Bessemer's question. Can Alabama beat Georgia again? Well, they can. I mean, you can beat them once, but I think all Alabama's focused on is Cincinnati, and all Georgia's focused on is Michigan right now. You got to play them one at a time in the playoff. But if those two teams meet again, certainly Alabama can beat them. I mean, again, if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm wondering if Georgia can beat Alabama. That's the question, because Kirby has not been able to do it. All right, thanks for the phone calls and the emails. Still to come on Tider Insider Television, Crimson Tide athletes make the grade and earn a diploma. That is coming up. It's a gorgeous night here in the City of Champions. We'll be right back to our WVUA 23 studios inside Bryant-Denny Stadium in the Digital Media Center right after this. On Saturday, 27 Crimson Tide student athletes took part in winter commencement ceremonies. The new graduates include 5 All-Americans, an academic All-American, and 12 athletes that were part of championship teams last season. How about that? Athletes from the sports of football, softball, track, soccer, swimming, women's basketball, men's tennis, and baseball, including former Alabama infielder Mikey White. Graduated. White was drafted in the second round of the 2015 MLB draft by the Oakland Athletics. Job well done as he came back to complete his degree and earn his diploma. All right, congratulations to all, not just the student athletes, but all the graduates. That's a big, big deal for sure to graduate from the University of Alabama. And thank you for tuning in to Tider Insider TV, presented by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. A reminder that you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 here on WVUA 23, or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. We'll leave you with pictures from this past weekend. Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young up in New York City. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.